new global talk show, Newstellers. Today I'm joined by my wonderful panel and a very special guest. Hi guys, how are you?
Good, John. Hi.
Great.
You all had a good week?
Great week. Very good.
As you can see, we have a very special guest with us today. Please welcome Tyler Rasch.
Hello, Tyler. How are you?
Great, thanks for having me today.
Welcome.
Wonderful to have you. So Tyler is from the US and is studying international relations at Seoul National University. How are you finding that?
It's great. I love it. I think it's a great choice to come to Korea to study abroad. I'm learning a lot, not only in school, but also outside of school. So
Okay.
it's a great experience.
I'm sure you have some really interesting insights for us today, so I can't wait to
Great.
hear from you. According to the Mail Business newspaper, graduates from some of the most prestigious universities are pouring money into private funds in order to leave Korea for better lives. So one might assume that, if you've been highly educated at a very prestigious university, you can get that high-flying, cushy job and have that fabulous lifestyle. So why do you think so many people are actually choosing to leave the country, leave that all behind?
I think it starts with social pressure.
Okay.
Social pressure starts with kids and teenagers. So those kids and teenagers, they are under a lot of pressure to study, to get the best marks, to compete with their colleagues. And finally, they get a teenager, they get to high school, and they just want to leave. Not all of them, but a lot of them, they just want to go to another country, not being under that pressure from the society, from the family, and can have a happy student life.
I think Korea is the most competitive society I ever saw. At all levels, from kindergarten to professional life, it's extremely competitive.
There's a very narrowly defined route to success here. You have to score high on the college entrance exam. You have to go to one of the top 3 universities here, and then afterwards, you have to work at one of the chaebols, the big conglomerates like Samsung or Hyundai. And there are limited positions for all of these organizations.
Well, Soo-jung mentioned the idea of a cushy job. I don't know if there really are any cushy jobs in Korea.
That might be true.
I think even if you get one of the top-notch positions that Jason refers to, you're still going to be expected to work very long hours. You're going to be under a lot of pressure to perform at a high level.
Tyler, you go to a top-notch university here?
I think there's a bunch of different factors that are at play with this kind of situation. Probably one would be the reality that it's no longer a true story that if you graduate from a Sky University or a top university that you will have a cushy job. This is now a myth. This is
So
not
just to
true.
clarify, Sky being Seoul
Sky
National
being
University.
Seoul National University, Korea University, and Yonsei University. And then another point would be contract-based jobs and tenure jobs is a huge issue here now. And I think there are a lot of young people now who are graduating from university or who have been in the work for a short period of time and they realize for themselves that they don't like the cultural style of these larger companies.
Okay.
And so I think for a lot of people, they either view the larger companies or they view going somewhere else. They view these two options. They don't really see sort of the SME sector or that kind of thing as another option.
So there's some cultural factors at play, as Atta mentioned. Starting from a very young age, the competition is very strong. And then some external factors such as the job market.
Sure.
But we'll see as we carry on our discussion that this is not only happening in Korea. All over the world, a significant number of people are going off to other countries in search of better opportunities. So that's going to be our topic for today, off to better lives. So first of all, what do you guys value most in your lives? What's most important to you?
I think I value most the ability to have freedom and to live and to work and to arrange my life and arrange what I do in a way that I think suits me.
Okay.
I think for me it's more simple. I think the worst thing in life is to be bored. And this is something I love in Korea. You're never bored in this country. There's always something happen. And
That's
Yeah, that's
true.
right, actually. Yeah.
Tyler?
I don't know, I guess it's different from everybody, obviously, but for me, I think I don't know if the right word is freedom, but for me to have the opportunity to pursue what I want to be doing and pursue my passions and pursue my interests.
I need to keep learning. I need to keep finding new things that interest me. And that's what got me into journalism, is that I get to write and research about new topics all the time. So it's a kind of a lifelong pursuit of knowledge.
Indeed.
For me, it's happiness. I'm a hedonist, so I always pursue pleasure and avoid pain. So that's the most important thing in life for me.
Okay. So I think to some degrees you're all pursuing happiness in some sense, whether you word it in the form of personal contentment, the pursuit of knowledge, or just outright happiness. I think that's to some degree what we're all pursuing. So we had a look at some data from the OECD, which indicates levels of happiness by country. So according to the OECD Better Life Index 2013, which evaluated 11 different criteria of well-being such as jobs, income, education and environment, Korea scored a 5.35 out of a possible 10, ranking 27th. So that's a pretty low score. I think to score-sensitive Korea, that's kind of upsetting.
Well, I noticed that my country, Canada, is number 3. But I could say I'm definitely much happier here because, as Fred said, I get bored very easily.
Right.
Canada is a clean and peaceful and lovely country,
Sounds
but
terribly boring.
it's pretty boring. So I think we need to look at these statistics and keep in mind that that doesn't necessarily translate to everyone's
And
experience.
I wonder how subjective it is. For example, I mean, Korean people complain a lot, like French people, they love to complain about their life. So I'm wondering whether, if you ask them, maybe they will complain more than would Canadians do.
There is, a certain notion here. There's this concept here of han, kind of a suffering, a resentment. And I think it might, I don't want to make any broad generalizations, but there could be something in the culture in which people, they feel that they're trapped, that they can't escape. That
it reminds me of something an acquaintance said to me. Koreans are actually scared to be happy.
I think there's a general idea of you do A, then you do B, then you do C, then you do D, and that's the best thing. So we all want the best thing, so let's all do that. And there's this expectation around that. And on top of that, with this sort of Korean cultural values highly related to the way one is perceived by others, then this is sort of a recipe for not being able to pursue what one wants to do if that's not in that A, B, C, D list.
Indeed.
So I think that can also be a factor for some people sort of experiencing a sense of frustration.
And also I think there's an economic reason. In Korea, you cannot see poverty, but there is a hidden poverty. There were some statistics recently that said that around 20 or 25% of Koreans were living under the line of poverty. But the thing is that in Korea you don't see the poverty because people have that kind of honor and they have that pride that they don't want to show the poverty, so they keep the poverty to themselves. And probably a lot of people is struggling with the economy, and finally it led to unhappiness.
So we talked about huge pressures on the Korean people. So how do you think Koreans deal with these issues?
I mean, it's tough. The number of suicide was multiplied by 3 in only 20 years. And I think we all journalists, we all wrote a lot of articles about suicide. And that's a big problem, that's a big issue.
Binge drinking is, I think, a real problem here. It's so expected in universities to drink until you pass out. In work environment, I think this kind of self-medicating through alcohol is one way that people relieve their stress and frustrations.
I'm very surprised by the number of people here who tell me, I want to go abroad. They consider that going abroad is the best option to get a better life. Or sending their children abroad. Sometimes very young kids don't even choose to be sent abroad.
So talking about that, there are certain countries in which Koreans prefer to settle down if they do leave. A survey result showed that about 200,000 Korean students chose the US, UK and Australia as the top 3 countries to go for study. Seeing a pattern there, they're all English-speaking countries. As we know, Korea is very, very focused on learning English as well. And the Gallup Korea reported that Australia, Canada and the US were voted the most preferred countries for Koreans to live in.
I think it has so much to do with just international student migration flows and higher education degrees and opportunities for employment. I think it's very simple. And I think these patterns and choice of countries for migration sit very well with patterns of choices for study abroad.
Right.
And particularly not just study abroad for linguistic purposes, but study abroad for obtaining higher tertiary education degrees.
I think I agree with you, but for students, and I think for young Korean professionals, I mean, if you look at the countries in the list after these English-speaking countries, you find a lot of European countries with very good welfare. I think there is Germany, there is Switzerland.
Indeed, yes.
So I think Korean people choose country where they think they will have a comfortable life with a good safety net, something.
I think the important question here then becomes, are you going, because we're talking about migration, are you migrating because of a push factor or a pull factor? Are you
Indeed.
migrating because you have to seek out better opportunities somewhere else? Or are you migrating because your country and your society and your economy is healthy enough and strong enough to empower you to make the choice to go where you want? And I think that what we're seeing with Korea now is very different than what people would be talking about Korea 30, 40 years ago.
Yeah, I just read an article in the Joseon Ilbo newspaper yesterday that cited data from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs that highlighted a pretty significant increase in the number of South Korean professionals, specifically who have emigrated to places like Germany and Scandinavia. And I think we can presume that a large part of their motivation is seeking, as you mentioned, Fred, more generous welfare states, things maybe like maternity leave, sick leave, paid vacation, and perhaps a corporate culture that is not quite as demanding as
Maybe for women, a better access to higher ranked jobs, better positions. Yeah.
But to some extent, there are problems not just in Korea. I mean, we talked about huge social pressures, but pressure can occur anywhere in the world, and there's a global economic crisis, huge unemployment, low birth rates in a lot of countries. So what do you think are the biggest issues in your native countries to 20 and 30-year-olds, the biggest social issues?
I think for France that there is unemployment growing. There is as well a perceived lack of opportunities, so people get a bit desperated. And the number of French people who went abroad doubled in only 20 years. And now 30%, I think it's 28% exactly of young graduates consider that going abroad is the best choice for their career, which is a big change.
And how big of a factor in that is the kind of dismantling of the jobs for life model in France?
I think it's
Is
a
that
big factor.
Okay.
In the past, it was very easy to get a lifetime job, and now until you're 30, 35, I think half of young people until 25 still don't have a regular contract. They still intern, they're still on very temporary contract. So there is this feeling that you get paid very little. There is no big hope of what you can get after. So people think, okay, why not trying abroad? But it's problematic. I mean, for Spain, that's what you call a brain drain, right? You have the best mind who are all going abroad. So your country, your tax, they pay, like you pay for university, for school, if it's free education.
Yeah,
and all these young graduates, they all flee the country. That's
actually, it's like that, but we hope those people can make something good for our country. Later when we come back. And what I would also want to mention that in this global world, the curiosity of the people has risen a lot. I think, like 10, 15 years ago, you were like more local oriented. But now with your smartphones, with the internet world, with everything, you can know a lot of things about a country that you would never know anything before. And then you like that country and you decide to find an opportunity to study there, to find an opportunity to work there. And you actively search and you do it.
A lot of people that go abroad, it's because they have some kind of passion, like something that they want to do. And I think going abroad when you're young, one benefit of it is it gets you away from a lot of social pressure. Even, I think in Canada and the US and in Europe, there are still older people who are saying to young people, come on, when are you going to get a job? When are you going to get your life together? When are you going to get married? So going abroad allows young people to have a little bit of space to think about what they want to do and time to pursue that, whatever that passion is, in a sort of lower pressure environment.
Well, I mean, I think one of the main issues affecting young people in the United States right now is overburdened with student debt.
Right.
There is more competition for the highly sought after jobs like in any other country. But in America, there's this notion of you have to own a home. You have to be, home ownership is a big part of that American dream. And that's becoming more and more difficult. So I think people are feeling frustrated that they're not living up to their potential as
Right.
Americans.
It's interesting that even in countries not Korea, that these social expectations are so high. I wouldn't have expected that, but. So we've talked at length about Koreans leaving Korea for other countries. Let's talk about the other way around now. So people from other countries moving to Korea. I think we all have experience in that, don't we? So I used to work in accounting before I left to pursue music in Korea. And you guys, did you actually have a choice in coming to Korea?
Of course.
You did?
I mean, in my case, I came by accident. I just had
Okay.
some Korean friend when I was in France, and I came to visit them, and I liked the country. I found people really nice, and at the time, it was 10 years ago, it was not as, the image was completely different with the image of Korea now, and I thought, well, there is a lot of opportunities, and I got a job. That's how I came.
I worked in journalism in New York, so it's not that I had problems finding a job back home. I wanted to be an international correspondent.
Right.
I wanted to be a globe-trotting journalist. So and I thought Korea had a lot to offer. So
Okay.
that's what brought me here to work.
All right.
Yeah,
what
same thing
about-
here. I mean, I found a job here in Korea 6 years ago, and I thought I was a journalist in Spain already, and I thought it would be a really, really interesting place in the world to practice journalism
Okay.
because of North Korea, because of that
Right,
economy
right.
miracle of Korea. So there are a lot of things that you can cover here, and yeah, actually, we are pretty happy with our job. I think I can't tell.
Can't
for
imagine doing anything
all
else.
of us, so yeah.
Right,
Okay, that's interesting. I would have thought, I had this assumption that you were all sent by your respective newspapers or TV stations to cover Korea. And obviously, not just you guys, we have more and more people coming to Korea every day. I mean, if you just go to Itaewon, you can see how many foreigners there are in the country. So let's have a look at this graph, which shows the number of foreign residents in Korea, a huge increase over the past 7 years. Have you found that over the time that you've been here, the number of foreigners has been increasing hugefold?
Yeah, you can feel that there are more foreigners. You can see them more in the subway, and you see them more like spread out. Before they were all in Itaewon, because it's like the neighborhood in Seoul that it was almost only foreigners 6 years ago. But now Itaewon is full of Koreans, and you see some foreigners. You see foreigners in every area these days.
And I think another trend that I've seen in the expat community here in Korea is that several years ago, I came here to work as a journalist in 2006. When you would meet a Western foreigner, most likely they were an English teacher or maybe even in the US military. Now these days, they're as likely to be a student or working for Samsung or some sort of other tech industry. So the expat community has become much more diversified in recent years.
So the reasons for foreigners coming to Korea has changed, you're saying? Okay.
In terms of for France, I mean, the change has been spectacular. In 10 years, the size of the Korean language department in university really exploded, and now among all the European students, the countries that send most students to Korea is France. It used to be Russia, and now it's France, and I think it has to be with a lot of reasons, the dynamism of the country, maybe the Hallyu, the Korean wave, and it's been really, really spectacular.
Because I know K-pop's really big in France.
It is.
For
I mean,
some
it
reason,
is.
of all places.
I would never have believed. Like, I was the
Yeah.
first to be surprised by how
Right.
K-pop became popular in France, and it shows. Like, you see a lot of students coming to Korea because of that.
A lot of people these days, Korean expats who have lived in perhaps the US or Canada, are returning to Korea. I mean, why do you think that is?
I think they've acquired skills overseas that they found could economically benefit them back here. They're filling niches in Korean society that didn't exist before. I mean, I think, for instance, one thing is the restaurant scene. I think the international food options here have improved so much, and that's often because of Korean Americans or Europeans of Korean descent who have come back here. They've opened cafes, restaurants, bakeries, whatever. But it's really made Seoul's culinary scene much more appealing.
Interesting.
I have another example on the startup scene. Recently, I visited a startup incubator, And it's striking to see how many of these new startups, like new high-tech small company emerging, are actually initiated by Korean Americans or Korean abroad who come back and who bring back ideas, that bring back fresh ideas, dynamism.
And also the language skills, because they come here being bilingual or trilingual. And then some Korean companies find that very interesting, and they can do a lot of jobs related to their language skills.
It's the way of the world nowadays. You know, people being born in one country and maybe studying in another country, and then taking everything they've learned and bringing it to a third country, and then maybe even moving on after that. So I think all of this movements and mixing of ideas and heritages makes Korea a more and more interesting place to live.
I think the South Korean government has also encouraged this type of immigration with allowing dual citizenship and as well as offering special visas for Korean diaspora. Right. So, I mean, it was a good, I think the government, however long these policies came into effect, really in the past decade, I suppose in the past 15 years, they saw this need that, you know, we talked about brain drain, but this is brain regain? What did they call it? Like it's,
recharge.
You know, they saw the need to bring back Korean immigrants to the motherland in order to help the local economy and help really the culture.
I think Koreans have this sense of taking care of their own being, you know, anyone with Korean blood. So I definitely agree with that. So I guess some Korean Kyopos who have moved back to Korea will eventually return home, or some of them may not.
Depends on where they consider home.
Indeed,
That's true.
Indeed. So I think from our conversation today, the general consensus is that if you're trying to find paradise elsewhere, you might not necessarily find it.
Yeah.
You know, perhaps happiness is something that you can only find within. That sounds very corny, but perhaps is true. So as always, let's wrap up with our final headlines. Tyler, we always create a one-sentence summary of our talk from today.
Oh, dear.
I'll let you go last. Have a bit of time to think about it. Fred?
There is a French saying that I like, who says like travel broadens the mind. So go for it.
Travel broadens the mind. Okay, Nata?
I would say moving abroad is an experience and an opportunity.
Okay, Jason?
Escaping your problems is not the best way to resolve them.
Very wise words. I'll let you get away with that one.
Home is where the heart and a busy news cycle are.
And finally, Tyler.
How to put it? I think, you know, we talked about migration issues today, but it's not just about coming and going. I think everybody is really just moving around. Very diverse, lots of people, here to there, not just here and there, but over there and over there and over there and over there.
Okay.
That's quite a headline.
So again, a bit of a long headline, but thank you so much for joining us, Tyler, and thank you for your insightful comments.
You.
And thank you to my wonderful panel, as always, for joining me. And join us next week for a whole new global talk show, Newstellers. We will be open for any opinions or requests on our official website as well as our Facebook page.
I must admit that all those evolutions when it comes to Korean companies made me interested.
I wish I will work in Korea, but I wish I don't have to work as hard as Korean.
Even if you pay a premium to study South Korea, the benefit is much higher than if you study in my country.
I found out that I have so many good things in life that is like besides the job, you have to enjoy your life, and that's what I found out in Korea.